3 weeks after I buried my wife, her boss called me and said 4 words that turned my blood cold. Come alone. Tell no one. Then his voice dropped even lower. Do not tell your son. Do not tell your daughter-in-law. For a second I could not even breathe. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter and stared at the wall. My wife had only been gone 21 days. The flowers from the funeral were dead. Her coat was still hanging by the front door. Her slippers were still under the chair where she used to sit and read at night. And now a man I barely knew was telling me to hide something from my own family. I asked him what this was about. He did not answer. He only said, "Your wife left something behind. You need to see it today. And Ethan, please. Trust me. Don't tell them." The line went quiet after that. I stood there with the phone in my hand, listening to the empty sound on the other end, and something inside me started to shake. Because grief is one kind of pain. But fear? Fear is different. My name is Daniel Hayes. Until 2 years ago I thought I understood my life. I thought I knew my wife. I thought I knew my son. I thought I knew what kind of family I had built. I was wrong. For 40 years I was married to the love of my life, Nora. She was the kind of woman who made ordinary days feel lighter. She did not need to be loud to be noticed. She had this quiet warmth about her. When she smiled at people they felt seen. When she listened she really listened. She remembered birthdays, favorite meals, little worries people mentioned one time and forgot. She carried kindness the way some people carry money. Naturally. For nearly 20 years, Nora worked as an executive assistant for a very wealthy investment company owner named Charles Whitmore. I had only met Charles a few times over the years. Holiday party handshakes. Short polite talks at retirement dinners. The kind of meetings you forget later. He was rich in the way rich men often are. Tailored suit, calm voice, expensive watch, office on the top floor. But Nora always said he treated people with respect. He's demanding, she would tell me, smiling while she took off her shoes after work. But fair. That matters. I never had any reason to doubt her. Then she got sick. It happened fast. Too fast. 1 month she was tired. The next there were tests. Then waiting rooms. Then doctors speaking softly like softer words could make the truth smaller. After a short illness she was gone. Just gone. The silence after that was the hardest part. People talk about funerals. They talk about grief. They bring casseroles and flowers and hugs. But nobody really talks about what happens when everyone leaves. When the house settles. When the door closes. When the person who made your whole life feel like home is not there anymore. That is when the real pain starts. Every room in our house hurt me. Her coffee mug still sat beside the sink with a faint brown ring at the bottom because I could not bring myself to wash it. Her reading glasses rested on the nightstand exactly where she left them. A book she had been halfway through was still folded open on the armchair in the den. Some mornings I would wake up and forget for 3 or 4 perfect seconds. Then I would turn, see the empty side of the bed, and the truth would hit me all over again. During those first weeks, my son and his wife became very attentive. At the time I thought I was lucky. My son Eric started calling every day. "Dad, you need anything? Dad, I can stop by after work. Dad, let us help." His wife Jenna came over with groceries, organized pills in little boxes, offered to sort paperwork, and kept saying they wanted to take care of things so I could rest. And because I was drowning, I let them. I let them sit at my table. I let them open drawers. I let them gather bank statements and insurance forms and property tax records into neat little stacks. Looking back now, I can still feel sick when I remember how often their eyes drifted to folders, envelopes, and account papers. But back then I saw love. I saw concern. I saw family stepping up when I could barely stand. That was my first mistake. 3 weeks after the funeral my phone rang. I almost ignored it. The caller ID said Charles Whitmore. I stared at the screen and thought maybe he was calling to offer another kind word about Nora. Maybe he wanted to send flowers. Maybe he wanted to ask if I needed anything from her office. Instead his voice came through tight and low. "Daniel," he said, "I need you to come in today." There was something strange in the way he said it. Not formal. Not casual. Tense. I straightened up in my chair. "Is something wrong?" He took a breath. While cleaning out some old storage cabinets, my staff found a sealed envelope. "It has your name on it. It's in Nora's handwriting." I did not speak. My heart had started beating too hard. He went on. "According to office records, she left it here months ago." Months. That word caught in my chest. Why would she leave a letter for me at work? I asked. "I think," he said carefully, "you need to read it before I answer anything." My hand tightened around the phone. "Then answer this. Why do I need to come alone?" There was a pause. A long one. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Do not tell Eric. Do not tell Jenna. Do not discuss this with them. Please. That was the moment everything changed. I said, Charles, what the hell is going on? It will make sense when you get here. That's not good enough. I know, he said. But if I say more on the phone, I may do more harm than good. Just come. And Daniel? Yes. Prepare yourself. The drive to his office felt unreal. I do not remember the traffic lights. I do not remember the radio. I only remember the questions. Why had Nora hidden something at work? Why not at home? Why leave it months before she died? And why warn me about my own son? I drove with both hands locked on the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Twice I almost missed a turn because my thoughts were moving faster than the car. By the time I parked in front of Whitmore Capital, my stomach felt hollow. The building was tall and polished and too clean. Glass walls. Silver doors. The kind of place where everything looks expensive and quiet. But when I walked in, nothing felt quiet. At least not inside me. A receptionist I did not know gave me a nervous smile and told me Mr. Whitmore was expecting me upstairs. When the elevator opened on the top floor, I saw Charles standing outside his office. And he was not alone. A woman stood beside him. She looked like she had not slept well in weeks. Mid-30s maybe. Dark circles under her eyes. A folder clutched tight against her chest. The second she saw me, her face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. Like she had been waiting for me. Charles stepped forward quickly. Mr. Hayes. Thank you for coming. I looked at the woman. Who is she? Please, he said, opening his office door, come inside. Both of you. The room was large, but it felt too small the second that door shut behind us. Charles motioned us toward the chairs near his desk. Then he said, Daniel, this is Naomi Pierce. She works in accounting. Nora trusted her. That sentence landed strangely. Trusted her. As if trust had become part of the reason I was there. Naomi gave me a small nod. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said, still staring at her. Have we met? No, she said softly. But I know who you are. Nora talked about you a lot. That almost broke me right there. Charles moved to a locked drawer in his desk, took out a sealed envelope and placed it in front of me. My name was written across the front. Daniel. In Nora's handwriting. Just seeing those letters made my chest tighten. For 1 second I could not touch it. I just stared. Because part of me already knew this was not going to be a simple goodbye note. Not with the fear in Charles's face. Not with Naomi sitting there looking like she wished she were anywhere else. Not with that warning still ringing in my ears. Do not tell your son. My fingers shook as I broke the seal. Inside was one folded letter. Several pages. Handwritten. Dated almost 6 months before Nora died. That date hit me first. 6 months. She had written this when she was still alive, still walking through our kitchen, still asking me if I wanted more coffee, still kissing me goodbye in the morning. I unfolded the pages. The first line blurred because my eyes filled too fast. My dearest Daniel, if you are reading this, then my worst fear has come true. I had to stop. I pressed a hand against my mouth and looked down until I could steady myself. Then I kept reading. She wrote that she loved me. That if I was reading the letter, it meant she had not been able to protect me in person. That she hoped with all her heart the envelope would never need to be opened. By then, my breathing had changed. Short. Tight. I went to the next paragraph. And the room changed with it. Nora wrote that she had accidentally overheard conversations involving Eric and Jenna. At first, she believed she misunderstood. She wanted to believe that. She even said so in the letter. I remember the exact line because I read it 3 times. I did not want to believe our son could speak about us that way. My eyes jumped lower. According to Nora, over time those conversations became harder to explain away. She heard them talking about our finances. About the house. About timing. About getting control sooner than expected. Sooner than expected. I looked up from the page and stared at Charles. He said nothing. Naomi stared at her hands. I looked back down and kept reading. Nora wrote that the more she listened, the more afraid she became. She said she never wanted to believe our own son could be motivated by greed. But every week, new signs appeared. My pulse pounded so hard I could hear it. Then came the part that made my hands go cold. She wrote that Eric had been making financial inquiries behind my back. She wrote that Jenna had asked strange questions about legal documents, account access, and property ownership. And she wrote one sentence that drained all the air from the room. I had been gathering proof. I slowly lowered the letter. Charles reached for a second folder on his desk and slid it toward me. That, he said quietly, is what she collected. I opened the folder. Emails. Printed account requests. Notes in Nora's handwriting. Dates. Names. Copies of attempted transfer forms. I looked from one page to another, but the words felt unreal, like I was reading about someone else's family. Naomi finally spoke. Nora came to me because some account activity didn't feel right, she said. At first it looked small. Just questions. Access attempts. Requests for balances tied to family records. But after a while, patterns started showing up. I looked at her. What kind of patterns? She swallowed. Several large transfers were attempted using information connected to family accounts. Most were blocked by security safeguards before anything could go through. But the attempts were real. I stared at her. No, I said before I even meant to. No, there has to be some mistake. I sounded like a child. I heard it, but I could not stop. That's my son, I said. Eric would never. My voice fell apart right there. Charles leaned forward. Daniel, I wish this were a mistake. I picked up one of the pages again. Then another. I saw dates that matched days Jenna had been helping Nora sort forms. I saw inquiry logs. Phone notes. One printed email that mentioned future planning, in a tone so cold it made my skin crawl. My stomach turned. Part of me wanted to stand up and leave. Part of me wanted to tear every page in half and say none of it was true. But paper does not tremble unless a hand touched it. Records do not print themselves. And Nora would never have written something like that unless she was sure. For the next 2 hours, Charles and Naomi walked me through every piece. Slowly. Carefully. Charles explained that Nora had asked him to keep the envelope safe if anything happened before she could decide what to do herself. Naomi showed me how she helped verify certain transactions. One by one they laid it out in front of me. Questions Eric asked that he should not have been asking. Information Jenna tried to access. Timing that made too much sense once I stopped fighting it. By the end my head was pounding. My hands would not stop shaking. I finally understood why Nora hid the letter at work. Not because she did not trust me. Because she knew me. She knew I loved our son. She knew I would reject the truth if she tried to say it out loud. And she was right. Even with the evidence in front of me, I still wanted to deny it. Before I left, Charles walked me to the door. Daniel, he said, whatever you choose to do next, don't move too quickly. I looked at him. How long did she know? He hesitated. Long enough to be worried. Not long enough to stop loving him. That one hurt more than everything else. In the elevator down, I pressed the letter against my chest and kept seeing Nora at our kitchen table, hearing something she never should have heard, deciding to investigate her own son because she was afraid for me. When I got to my car, I sat there a long time. I did not start the engine. I did not call anyone. I just cried. Not neat tears. Not quiet ones. The kind that bend your whole body. Over the next few weeks, I said nothing. Not to Eric. Not to Jenna. I did not mention the call. I did not mention the envelope. I did not mention Charles or Naomi or the folder. Instead I watched. And once you know what to look for, some things become impossible not to see. Eric started asking more pointed questions. Dad, have you thought about simplifying your accounts? Dad, do you know exactly what your monthly costs are? Dad, maybe it's time to think about the future. You know, planning ahead. Jenna was worse because she wrapped every question in sweetness. This house is so big for one person. You shouldn't have to handle all this paperwork alone. If you sold now, you could move somewhere easier. Easier. That word came up a lot. So did practical. So did sensible. At first I answered carefully. Then I stopped answering much at all. I just listened. And the more I listened, the more their kindness felt rehearsed. Like actors reading lines. Like every visit had a purpose I had been too broken to notice before. One Sunday afternoon, Jenna stood in my den holding a file box. I can organize these insurance papers for you, she said with a bright smile. It'll make everything so much easier later. Later. I looked at the box in her hands. Then at her face. Then at Eric, who was pretending to check a sports score on his phone while clearly listening. No, I said. Leave them. The smile on her face froze for half a second. Are you sure? I'm sure. She set the box down too fast. That tiny flash of irritation in her eyes lasted maybe 1 second. But I saw it. And once I saw that, I started seeing everything. Then came the moment that destroyed whatever hope I still had. One night, Eric and Jenna stayed late after dinner. I told them I was tired and went upstairs. At least that's what they thought. I had forgotten my reading glasses in the kitchen and started back down when I heard their voices. So I stopped halfway down the stairs. The house was dark except for the light over the sink. I could see part of the kitchen through the banister. Jenna leaned against the counter with her arms crossed. "This is taking longer than I thought," she said. Her voice was sharp now. No sweetness. No soft edges. "He still hasn't made any changes." Eric let out a breath. "Then we wait." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She shook her head. "What if he starts moving things around?" There was a pause. "Then my son, my own son," said the sentence I will never forget. "Just stay patient. Eventually, it all belongs to us anyway." I did not move. I could not. My hand gripped the stair rail so hard it hurt. Jenna said something else, but I barely heard it. That one sentence had already done the damage. Eventually, it all belongs to us anyway. Not Dad. Not the house where I raised him. Not the savings his mother and I spent decades building. All of it. As if I were already gone. As if my life were just the last locked door standing between them and a pile of assets. I backed away from the stairs without making a sound. I went into my bedroom and shut the door gently. Then I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. That night, I cried harder than I cried at Nora's funeral. At the funeral I lost my wife. That night I lost my son. Not to death. To greed. To coldness. To something so ugly I still struggle to name it. I kept hearing his voice. Eventually, it all belongs to us anyway. Around 2 in the morning I stood up, wiped my face and made a decision. The next day I called an attorney. His name was Leonard Price. Older man. Quiet. Careful. The kind of lawyer who did not waste words. We met in his office with the blinds half closed. I brought Nora's letter. I brought the folder. I brought my shaking hands and what was left of my trust. He read everything without interrupting. When he finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I stared at the desk. For the first time in my life, I said, "I want to protect myself from my own family." He nodded once. "Then we do that." Over the next several months we changed everything. Every account. Every legal document. Every vulnerable corner of my estate. Leonard helped me build walls where there had once been open doors. We added protections around my finances. We tightened account access. We changed who could see what. We updated powers, trusts, permissions, records. Then I made another choice. One Nora would have loved. I moved large portions of my wealth into charitable trusts. I funded scholarship programs in her name. I directed money toward causes she cared about. Students who needed help, families under stress, people who had talent but not resources. If Eric and Jenna had been waiting for a future payday, that future was shrinking with every signature. And the strange thing was, the more I did it, the lighter I felt. Because for the first time since Nora died, I was not reacting. I was choosing. Months later, Eric found out. I do not know exactly how. Maybe through legal notices. Maybe because one of his quiet little checks stopped working. Maybe because greed gets nervous when the ground shifts. He came to my house angry. Not worried. Not hurt. Angry. He did not even sit down. "What did you do?" he snapped the second I opened the door. I looked at him. There it was again. "No, Dad, are you okay?" "No, we need to talk." "Just accusation." I stepped aside and let him in. He walked into the living room like he owned it. "I got copies of the estate changes," he said. "You moved money. You changed everything." "Yes." His face reddened. "Why would you do that?" I held his eyes. "You really want to ask me that?" He blinked. Then he shifted, like he suddenly realized we were not having the conversation he expected. Jenna came in behind him a second later, carrying the same fake concern she always wore. "Daniel," she said softly, "maybe there's been some misunderstanding." I almost laughed. A misunderstanding. That word always shows up when liars get cornered. I walked to the table, picked up Nora's letter and placed it in front of them. Eric stared at it. "What is this?" "Your mother's handwriting," I said. He did not touch it. Jenna did not either. They looked at each other first. That told me everything. Eric's jaw tightened. "You went through private things?" "No," I said. "Your mother protected me." Silence. Heavy. Ugly. Then it broke. Eric started talking fast. Said I was overreacting. Said Jenna and he were only trying to help. Said planning ahead did not mean anything. Said I was being manipulated by other people. I let him talk. I let him talk until the mask slipped. It always slips. "You think this is fair?" he shouted. "After everything? After I'm your only son?" There it was. Not grief. Not pain. Entitlement. His hands were shaking now. Jenna grabbed his arm, trying to calm him, but she looked furious too. "You gave money away," she said. To strangers. I looked at her. To students, I said. To people who need a chance. Eric laughed once, bitter and sharp. So that's it? You'd rather hand it to them than your own family? That sentence landed like a hammer. Because he said it without even hearing himself. Not you'd rather protect yourself. Not I'm sorry. Not how did we get here. Just money. Just inheritance. Just what he believed should already be his. For the first time since Nora's death, I felt something close to peace. Not because I enjoyed it. Because the truth was finally standing in the room with us where no one could hide from it anymore. I raised you, I said quietly. I loved you. Your mother loved you. We built this life 1 year at a time. And you stood in my kitchen and talked about my death like it was a schedule problem. His face changed. Just for a second. So, he knew then. He knew I had heard him. Jenna stepped in. That is not what he meant. It's exactly what he meant. Eric looked away. That hurt more than if he had shouted again. Because he did not deny it. Not really. He just stood there breathing hard, trapped between anger and shame. The argument went on after that. Years of little resentments came pouring out. Things I never knew he carried. Complaints about money. About pressure. About what he felt he deserved. About how hard it was to wait while we lived in a paid-off house and held on to savings. Wait. He actually said wait. As if my life was some locked account taking too long to open. By the time they left, my whole body felt drained. But my mind felt clear. Clearer than it had since the day Nora got sick. A few weeks later, I visited the scholarship program created in Nora's honor. I almost canceled that morning. I was tired. Emotionally empty. But something told me to go. The event was held in a small hall at a community college. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs. Coffee and paper cups. Nervous students in their good clothes. A banner with Nora's name printed across it. The first time I saw that banner, I had to look down for a second. Then one of the coordinators touched my arm and smiled. You should hear what this has meant to them, she said. So I stayed. One by one, a few students stood up and spoke. A young woman said the scholarship meant she could stay in nursing school instead of dropping out to work full-time. A quiet boy with shaking hands said he was the first in his family to attend college. Another student said the support did not just pay tuition. It gave her time. Time to study. Time to breathe. Time to believe her future could be different. I listened and something inside me softened. Not because the pain was gone. It was not. I still missed Nora every single day. I still reached for her in my sleep sometimes. I still turned to speak to her when something funny happened and then stopped halfway through the sentence. But sitting there hearing those stories, I felt close to her in a way grief had not allowed for a long time. This was her. Her kindness. Her heart. Her instinct to protect people. Even after death, she was still giving. Still helping. Still reaching farther than the people who tried to reduce her life to dollars and forms and future access. When the event ended, a young man came up and thanked me with tears in his eyes. He said, I never got to meet your wife. But whoever she was, she changed my life. I could not speak for a second. Then I nodded and said, yes. She did. Today I still miss her. I always will. There are moments when I would give anything, anything at all, to hear Nora's voice one more time. To hear her call from the kitchen. To hear her laugh at some silly thing on television. To feel her hand touch my shoulder in passing. But mixed with that grief now is something else. Gratitude. Because she saw what I refused to see. She paid attention when I would have looked away. She gathered proof when I would have called it impossible. And she found a way to protect me, even after she knew she might not be here to do it herself. That envelope hidden in her office did more than reveal a secret. It saved my future. It saved my dignity. It saved me from handing the rest of my life to people who had already started counting what they would gain when I was gone. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who can hurt you deepest. And sometimes the person who truly loves you keeps protecting you long after death should have ended their reach. As I walked out of that scholarship ceremony, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. I stopped on the steps and looked up at the sky.